Welcome to She Sells Radio. Welcome, welcome. I am so excited that you are here. And I'm just going to get right into it today because I've got hopefully what will be a jam-packed episode for you of some tips and some things that I wish I knew on my journey to my first six figures. And I wanted to record this because I know we have a mixed audience listening to this, but I do know that for many of you, just having talked to my community via text and via Instagram, your sales goal for this year is at least six figures. And so today I want to share with you some of the biggest mistakes that I made on my journey to six figures, and then also how you can avoid them. And I'll say this right off the bat too. So as with any financial goal, these tips are going to be things that you can apply whether you're going for more or more or less in this year. But what I found in my own journey was actually hitting six figures was harder than it's been to go on and hit seven, because there was so much just self-doubt and lack of understanding how money works energetically along the way too. And so it gets easier. This is the first thing I want you to know. If you are feeling like there is any amount of struggle or any amount of like, oh, this just feels like a target that I've been trying to hit for a while, and it feels hard and it feels bigger than me, I just want to hopefully reaffirm for you, it does get easier. And for me, and for a lot of the clients I work with, like that first six-figure mark was the most challenging because of all the personal growth that had to be done along the way. But then it does, like if you apply the principles we talk about today and that we talk about here in the community, it does get to keep getting easier and better for you. So the first thing that I wish I knew on my journey was it doesn't have to take long or be hard. It doesn't have to take long or be hard. And I want you to really anchor into that for whatever the goal is that you're going for right now, especially the part about it doesn't have to be hard. And in fact, when we're going for any goal and it feels hard, that is a sure sign that there's a part of you that's out of alignment with it. And the way to have it happen faster is to get in alignment with the goal. And I'm going to share some things today that are going to help you do that. That's a lot of what my brand is about. So there's so many resources for you in my YouTube videos and in the other podcasts about how to be in alignment with your goal. But just know if something feels hard, there's something that is out of alignment between you and the goal. And so my own personal experience was I hit six figures in my corporate sales income. I started off in media sales. I sold digital media for global brands. And I hit that number pretty quickly in my early 20s. But it was really because I liked nice things, and I had what for me at that time was expensive taste, and I needed the money. So it didn't take me long. It took me less than a year in corporate to do it, but I made it very hard on myself. And I did that in a lot of different ways. And I mean, the old Elyse versus who I am now and how I know prosperity and abundance works now, night and day difference. So I had a belief system, which is very common. And I want you to check in now on your own belief system I had a belief system that if I'm going to make more money, I've got to work harder and more hours than everybody else. And so the only way I knew how to make more money was to keep waking up earlier and earlier and going to bed later and later. And I was up at I'm an early bird now. I'm up at 3 or 4 in the morning, but it's because I want to have time in the morning for morning routine and time with God and that energy. It's not because I have to wake up and get into my emails right away, or else I just don't have enough time in the day. And that was very much my energy back then. So I had that belief system running, and I was extremely unhealthy in a lot of ways. I was young enough that you couldn't see it very much on my body. But I had a very unhealthy eating behavior. I was drinking too much, like all the things that just were not healthy because I was trying to cope. I was trying to cope because I wanted success. I wanted financial abundance. I wanted to have a certain lifestyle, but the only way I knew how to do it was by literally running my body into the ground. And as I look at my body now, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I didn't do more damage than I did during that time, even though I did some, but our bodies are amazing and can recover, thank goodness. But I really thought it was by working harder. And I want you to just check in on that too. Like if you have that belief, because I know a lot of the women and men in this community who I serve, they grew up with that conditioning that you got to work hard to make more money. We can examine beliefs for whether they're true or not. And we don't have to accept them as truth just because it's something that you heard again and again growing up. So if hard work was what created money, then people like construction workers, domestic workers would be the highest paid in our society. They're not. They're not. And we're not going to get too much today into the energetics of money. I've got a ton of other content on my podcast and on my YouTube channel about that if you want to dive deeper. But the Science of Getting Rich talks about this. It's making money is not about working harder. It's about doing things in a certain way that when you do it that way with scientific and mathematical certainty, you will get rich, you will make more money, but it's not about hard work. And so because I didn't know that, my journey to six figures and then my plateau at six figures, which I'll talk about in a moment, was riddled with hard work and was riddled with constant stress and anxiety about the money as well, about it going away, about it not being there for me. And so it was really not an enjoyable experience at all. And I overcompensated for that by binge shopping, binge eating, all of it. Like, again, very unhealthy habits. And so I wish the version of me who was on her six-figure journey knew that there was a better way, because there is. And I also want to invite you into the knowing that there is a better way. And I was having a conversation yesterday with a client who said she's actually on her journey to seven figures. And she was like, I want this so badly, but I need to do it in a way where my nervous system isn't constantly on alert. It isn't constantly feeling unsafe, because that was how she had built her business the first time. And I thought, oh my gosh, like how much can I relate to that? I didn't know it was what was going on before, because it was just so normal. And I think in our society, the number that I hear consistently is about most people live about 70% of their day in just stress all the time. Like this, we take it as normal and we think it's normal. It's actually, number one, it's not. And it's actually the thing that's blocking you from creating more money and creating more abundance. Because when you're in that space, in that head state, your brain is in fight or flight, your body is in fight or flight. And literally the parts of your brain that would open you up to new ideas and to creativity and to in that creation mode, they get shut down when we're in survival mode. And so if you're in that state right now, I want to invite you into the belief. This was hard for me to accept at first, but it's very true. I can tell you from experience that the more relaxed you are, the more at ease you are, the more calm and at peace you are, the more money is going to come into you. Because when you're in that state, number one, you're an energetic match for the financial goal you're wanting to create, because the reason you want six figures or whatever the goal is because you think it's going to make you feel free, abundant, joyful, creative, whatever. So part of how we make the quantum leap and we do things faster is by being an energetic match for that goal, by living in that feeling state now. And then two, it's going to open your brain up when you're relaxed, when you're not in fight or flight mode. Your brain can actually open up to give you ideas and to give you downloads and inspirations of things you could do, actions you could take to achieve that goal. So the being state of it is huge. And I wish I knew that going into it. And now I do. And if you didn't know that, or if you haven't been living that, like really been living that on your journey to six figures or beyond, then I want to invite you to really open up to that belief system. So in my own experience, though, continuing the conversation around, it doesn't have to be hard or it doesn't have to take long. like I said, I hit six figures pretty fast, probably by most people's standards. But once I got there, I plateaued there. And I plateaued there for about 10 years. And I hear this from a lot of the members of our community that they feel like they've been stuck at a certain level for a period of time and they're kind of sick of it. They're kind of fed up with being stuck. And that was very much my story. And here's what I've learned. The only thing making it take longer than you want is you. This is always true. We are always the thing in our own way. And I don't say that like a judgy thing towards yourself, but more of an empowering thing of you can shift it. If it's taking longer than you want, you can shift it. And it's usually based on, probably actually always based on a limiting belief that you've got to work hard for money. And maybe you're already feeling maxed out in terms of energy. And you're thinking, I can't imagine how I could put in more hours. So I guess I just can't make more money. Or this is very common as well, some sort of a hidden negative belief about money, like rich people are greedy, money's the root of all evil. So kind of check in on what was some of that conditioning that you grew up with around money, or even conditioning in our society today that's judgmental about money or people who have money. And if there's any element of that running as a subconscious program in your conditioning, then you won't make the money, because you'll say, well, if I make more money, and money, like rich people or wealthy people or whatever, everyone's version of that is different. But if those people are bad or greedy, I don't want to be bad or greedy, so I'm not going to make it. So it always boils down to looking at our beliefs and looking at what is the limiting belief in the situation here. And I don't remember who I first heard say this, but the universe likes speed. Like things happen and move along at a solid pace. If you look at just how things work naturally. So the universe likes speed. Things are always meant to be expanding as well. So your life is meant to continuously expand. And that is not limited to, but that does include your finances. And so if you're not moving at, it's not a breakneck speed, it's not a binge speed. So this is where we want to be mindful of, like, what are the natural flows of energy in your life? But if you're not moving at what feels like an enjoyable pace towards your next level, and you're feeling stuck, or it's feeling like a stop start type energy or a stagnant energy, then there's something energetically where you're resisting it. And when we tune into that, and when we get clear on what that is, we can then release that, and that can open up a whole world of possibility. And, some of the things I would do is, number one, I would look at, if you are feeling stuck in any way, shape, or form, how long have you been in that same place financially? Like, where are you at right now? How long have you been at that same place? Where do you want to be? Where would you love to be? I love asking the question, if there were no consequences or limitations, what would be different in your life? Where would you be? And then whatever that goal is, let's just say it's six figures for the kind of the theme of this show. What are you telling yourself about why it's going to be hard to get there? Why you're not worthy of that amount of money, whatever it is, like examine and just get curious about what are those limiting beliefs about getting there. And you can just journal on them. You can ask your subconscious to show you. You can do this when you go to bed at night, say, hey, show me tonight, or tell me, like, when I wake up in the morning, what are my limiting beliefs about this goal? You can do it going into meditation. It'll always tell you. Your subconscious is there as your servant to give you what you want and tell you what you want. So it is there and it will tell you. But when we get clear on those are the things that are keeping you stuck and making it take longer than is needed. And there's often a lot of healing that needs to be done around your relationship with money. That was a huge piece of my journey, because I was taking attributes of my parents. I was taking attributes, and my parents are incredible people, so I want to always preface everything I say with that. As with every one of us, there are things that we learn growing up about how to be loved or how to be safe in the world that don't necessarily, like, meanings we assign to it that don't always serve us later in life. And I took those same things and I applied it to money, and I didn't realize that was what I was doing. And that was making it take way longer than it needed to go to the next level. So I'm just sharing these numbers for like context of how quickly this can shift and how quickly it can change when you do this healing work, this inner work. Cause I was stuck at around six figures for about 10 years, like give or take. I would make 100, I'd make 98, I'd make 128, but it was around that mark when I learned how to rewire my subconscious beliefs around money. And I applied what we teach in the She Sells community and took more aligned action, not efforting action. I very quickly started making six figures a month. Like within a matter of weeks, I started making six figures a month. I just recently made that in a few days. And I can say it 100% conviction. It has been from shifting my belief system around how money works in my life and how much I'm capable of receiving at one time. And I think this piece is key as well, that if it feels like it's taking long or it feels like it's hard, one of my mentors, Gina DeVee, she asked this question of how good are you willing to let life get? And I love that because we all have, what is the book by Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap, about like an upper limit factor where it's like, ooh, that feels like the threshold of how much I'm willing to allow in. That feels like the threshold of how good I'm willing to let life get. So we all kind of have that. I mean, you can tell what it is by looking at what your life is right now. I know I have it because there's next level goals I want to manifest and they haven't happened yet in my life. And it's not about making myself wrong because I've really learned to enjoy the journey and I love the journey now. And it's way more about who am I becoming along the way and just having fun with that. But that upper limit it'll stop you from bringing in more. And so I consistently have worked to get comfortable with receiving more. I feel like I'm just throwing out quotes right now, but these are the quotes that are coming to mind as I talk about this. If you're in one of my programs, 10K club, 50K club, private mentoring, you probably know that we listen to so much Tony Jones music and it's like a mantra of the community. And one of the lines from one of her songs is, I'm learning to handle massive blessings with mature care. I think that's about what she says, but I'm learning to handle massive blessings with mature care. And I just feel like that's been a theme of so much of my life in this past year, is like learning to handle it. And I frankly wasn't ready to handle it on my journey to six figures. And then when I was kind of stuck at that level, I just wasn't ready for it. So it's not about making yourself wrong, but as soon as you decide you're ready for it, and as soon as you decide to get fierce about it and step into it and allow those massive blessings into your life, things shift and it's powerful. So that's the first one. It doesn't have to take long and it doesn't have to be hard. The second thing I wish I knew on my journey to six figures and beyond: do not use money to validate your self-worth. This is so important. Stop using money to validate your self-worth. I was the queen of this. It's a slippery slope. It is a slippery slope is what I will say. I used to feel like when I wasn't making six figures yet, it was when I make six figures, then I've made it. Like, then I'm good. Then I'm worthy. Or it would be when I have that car, when I have that home, when I'm at the top of the sales leaderboard, then I'm going to feel good about myself. And here's what I have learned. This is so true. I want you to really listen to this. You will never have enough to feel worthy if you're using money as your validation. Never. It will not happen. You will never have enough. It's the opposite. The way that it actually works when you do this in a powerful way, where you make the money and it doesn't feel like a roller coaster ride and you're not in fear or stress about it going away, is you learn that you validate yourself first, and then the money will come in proportion to how worthy you feel. But you've got to validate yourself first. So we have to always remember, We get what we are in this life, not what we want. And this is something that I used to get really twisted around money making and manifestation was I want the money. I want the money. So I'm going to put that amount of money on my vision board and I'm going to look at it and I'm going to feel it. But what I was really feeling when I would look at it was the lack of it and the fear of what if it doesn't come? I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. I didn't realize that I could look at that amount of money all day long. But if what I felt when I looked at it was, I don't have it, or I'm not worthy of it, it wasn't going to come. It couldn't. It wasn't possible because I was emanating out, I'm not worthy. So I would get back mirrors and situations of I'm not worthy. So it's so important to know this, that you have to validate yourself first, and then the money will come. You've got to feel worthy first, and then the money will come. It will always come back to match who you're being. So start validating yourself now. And this is the work. Praise yourself throughout the day. And you've got to be so conscious of this. If you've been running negative programs, negative self-talk, like around anything that has to do with you, whether your financial situation, whether your body, whether your results, whether how you are as a mom, or as a dad, like that, those are actually the things that are holding you back from allowing more good into your life. And part of that good is more financial abundance. So start validating yourself now and praise yourself throughout the day. It's a conscious effort. And I've got to be conscious about this, or else my brain will take me down some rabbit hole of self-critique. Like it happens to all of us, right? So you've got to be so aware, which is why meditation is important. So aware of what are the programs running in your mind about yourself. But when you see yourself in the mirror, you look beautiful today. You're so gorgeous. When you put a post out on social media, that was so good. Like, I'm so proud of you for putting yourself out there like that. Regardless of what the feedback is, you validate yourself. You are your own verification and validation. Also, like, stop. And this isn't to say that you don't want coaching and mentoring. Obviously, I'm a big fan of that. I'm a coach. I have coaches. I use them quite often to get feedback, but be mindful of who you're seeking out opinions from and asking what you should and shouldn't do. This is really important. This is something we talk about a lot in the community. I was talking to a client earlier today on a call, and she was talking about how other people just didn't get her, and how she would share some stuff with them and they would, they would look at her like she was crazy, or they wouldn't get it. And our conversation was, you got to know your audience. You got to be so mindful of who you seek perspective from, and only seeking perspective from people who have the life you want, if there's something you're not clear on. But I would also make it a practice of, what do you think you should do? Like, before you go to your mentor, before you go to your coach, it's not to say you're not going to use them and go to them, because that's why they're there. But just try first, seeing what am I feeling? What do I think in this situation? And then go and ask them. But practice looking inside first and validating your own ideas before seeking outside perspective. So that's really important. And when we do this, when we start to feel good before the money has come, when we start to validate ourselves, when we start to really be in the energy of worthiness. One of my 10K Club group members said this on our call just this afternoon. She said, when you do that and the money comes, it feels like, of course it did, because of who I'm being. And I love that way of putting it, because that's the energy. That's actually the really powerful energy of manifestation, of creating more abundance, of creating anything in your life, is when it feels like an of course, because of who you've been being. That's how, that's the flow, that's the feeling. And it's so good. The third thing I wish I knew on my journey to six figures is, you get to do it your own way. You get to do it your own way. And this is one of the most powerful messages that I really want to impart to this community. And it was so much of the inspiration of the creation of this brand, is that if there's something you think you have to do in order to make money that doesn't feel aligned with your ethics or who you are, I want you to know and really listen to this. There is a more powerful way to do it. You don't have to do things that feel off to you, that don't feel ethical, that don't feel aligned, that don't feel moral. And you can trust yourself about what feels right. Now, this is not about making excuses for not doing the work. So I want to be very clear with this. Do I do things that feel hard? And I'm going to sound like I'm contradicting myself from what I said before about if it feels hard, it's off. Sometimes there's a conditioning process of a new habit that we need to make. And those first, usually like 6 to 8 weeks of forming a new habit can feel hard because your body's resisting it. Like it felt hard to me to meditate, but I knew it was good for me. But it felt hard to me to meditate the first few weeks to months I did it. But once I got past that hump, it now feels so natural. So when I say, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. What I mean is from like, if this is misaligned with who I am and where I'm going, or this feels unethical. So I want to clarify that with what I'm saying. But, when I was in corporate, and this is everything I say here is no knock on corporate. I have a lot of corporate consulting clients. I work with a lot of clients in corporate. I love my corporate people. So it's no knock on it at all. But when I was, especially earlier in my sales career, really what was taught about how to be successful in sales was very, how do I want to say it? It felt like a box that I just didn't fit in. So it was read this script like call them on the phone, read this script verbatim, pound the phone, smile and dial. That makes me feel and sound old. I know it's different in a lot of corporate environments now. Thank goodness we have some more evolved ways of doing this, but it was very formulaic and very do this thing that literally made me feel like I was turning my brain off and like I was having to be a robot. And that never felt good to me. So I did what was required because I was the good girl archetype and I wanted to, they were paying me. I did what was required, but I also really had a desire to build a brand and launch a podcast before podcasts were even really like a big thing. Do webinars of my own, like to draw in clients. And I know like if you're in corporate and there's compliance, I know like the ins and outs of doing this and you got to go through compliance in certain spaces and all that. So I get it. So always, always, always do if you're working for a company, check on what can I do within the confines of this role. But these things always felt lighter to me. They always felt easier to me. And guess what? They worked really well. Like they worked really well. And I had a lot of success with them and they were fun, but they were always kind of frowned on by leadership. And I wasn't really allowed to talk about them with anybody else. So there was almost this like shameful energy of doing it my way. And here's what I can say is I can tell you straight up, I would not have been as successful as I was if I tried to mimic an approach that didn't feel right. Now, I would have been even more successful if I'd implemented these other mindset pieces into what I was doing at the time. But I really learned to do what felt aligned and felt right energetically and had a lot of success. And it will be the same for you. And if you're an entrepreneur, I want you to look at, do you feel pressured to do things a certain way because everyone else is doing them? Do you feel pressured to follow a certain webinar formula because it's what has been taught and what you think is the only way for you to be successful? And it's not to say we don't want to use what works. Like this is where, again, I'm a big believer in coaching. I'm a big believer in take what works from other people, but give it your own spin, like make it yours and trust what feels right to you. I had just an incredible client. She's a 7-figure entrepreneur, Lisa Woodruff of Organized 365 on the podcast. Gosh, I don't know, sometime in 2021, I don't have the episode number pulled up, but she shared something that I loved because she's built a very successful business in the online space. She does webinars, but she said, I hate countdown timers on webinars, like the, you know, when you get on and it's like, you've got 5 minutes to buy or else this thing is going away. And she was like, I hate them. I won't do them. I think it creates false pressure for people. And I just am not in alignment with them. And she made that strategic decision that she was not going to do them because they didn't feel right to her. And guess what? She is growing and scaling a very successful 7-figure plus business. She's doing just fine. And her people appreciate her doing what feels right to them and right to her. And it's not to say that if a webinar countdown timer feels right to you, you shouldn't do it. Like, do what feels right to you, use what works and do what feels right to you. But if it doesn't feel right, you don't have to be in a box of, I'm only going to be successful if I do this thing that feels skeezy or slimy or whatever. And in my own business over this past year, like we did so many different things because we were launching this new brand and figuring out what works. And I can tell you, every single time I did something that was like, oh, I should be doing this, or other people are doing this, or it just wasn't like really from the heart. It was more of a, I should. It didn't work as well. It didn't. And every single time I did something that was a hell yes in my body that felt like, yes, maybe this isn't what conventional wisdom would say, or maybe this isn't like I don't know, the price point that ends in whatever number that says it'll convert the best. But to me, energetically, this number feels right for this program. Like it always did better. It always did better. And so you can trust yourself with what feels right. So again, quick recap on those 3 things. Number 1, 3 things I wish I knew on my journey to 6 figures. It doesn't have to take long or be hard. Number 2, stop using money to validate your self-worth. And number 3, you can do it your own way. You can trust yourself. And so I just want to invite you, if you are ready to break 6 figures this year, and if you know this is your year for 6 figures and for that amount of abundance and flow in your life, and you're like, I'm ready for it, I'm worthy of it, I'm tired of being stuck at whatever level I've been for however long, I want to invite you to register for my I'm so excited about this. We're doing something we've never done before. It's a 2-day live coaching intensive at the end of January. You can learn more at ElyseArcher.com/workshop, but it's all about helping you make 2022 your year for 6 figures. And we're doing deep dive coaching and training with you to help you release blocks around bringing in more money, to help you make your game plan for success. The second day of it is all live coaching, which my private clients pay 6 figures for, to have that type of access to me. And so you're getting a huge, tremendous value with this. And I would love nothing more than to spend these 2 days with you, just pouring into you, helping you get really clear and really dialed in on how you're going to achieve your 6-figure goal for this year. It's going to be so powerful. And I would just say, like, do yourself a favor and set yourself up for success right away. If you're like, hey, I know I've got big goals and a big vision for this year, and I know I'm worthy of support. I'm deserving of support. And I want to go ahead and get that on the calendar and know that I've got that done. I know I've got help in this area. Get yourself registered now so I can pour into you and help empower you to break that 6-figure plus mark this year. So ElyseArcher.com/workshop to get registered. I'm so excited to see you there. And I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. As always, reach out to me with any questions. I'm at Elyse Archer on all social platforms. And I will see you next week for our next episode. Lots of love. Bye for now.